Welcome to the November annual legacy event. My name is Kara, and I am here today facilitating a conversation with young adults for Inheritance of Hope. We are really glad that you're here, and we are super hopeful that today, through our conversation, that you will find some information that is interesting to you, and that hopefully you're blessed by the stories that these young adults have to share. I think that this is an especially great group of people because I get to meet with them on the weekly, which we'll talk about later. But they all have a unique story. And through our conversation today, I know that you will be blessed by some of the things that they're willing to share. So first of all, I'd just like to thank them all for being here, for their time, and for being a part of the Inheritance of Hope family. So how we're going to start today is I'm going to go ahead and let them all introduce themselves. They're going to share with you their current age, the age that they were when their parent was diagnosed, when their family was served through IOH, and then the age that they were when they lost their parents. So you have a little bit of frame of reference for who they are and where they're coming from. And then they're also going to tell us kind of what they're up to and where they are. So Haley, why don't you go ahead and start for us?
Hi, I'm Haley. I am 22 years old. My mom was diagnosed with glioblastoma when I was 14, and we attended our retreat the next year. So I was 15 at the time. My mom passed away when I was 16 years old. So it was about 2.5 years after her diagnosis. And right now I am in graduate school, my first year in Knoxville, Tennessee for speech pathology.
Thanks, Haley. Isaiah.
I'm Isaiah. My dad was diagnosed with ALS when I was 15 years old. I'm 21 now, and I was served in Orlando in 2017, so I was 17. Right now, I'm a land surveyor living in Utah, and just enjoying life.
Thanks. Maddie, how about you?
My name is Maddie. I am 24 years old. I think I was 15 when my dad was diagnosed. He was diagnosed in 2012 with neuroendocrine carcinoma. We went on our retreat in 2015 to New York City, and my dad passed away in 2018. So I was 21 when my dad had passed. Now I am back home living in Rapid City, South Dakota, and I'm in my first semester of grad school with South Dakota State University in Administration of Student Affairs.
Thanks. Jency.
Hi, my name is Jency. I am 21 years old. My dad was diagnosed with glioblastoma when I was 18, so it was in 2018. We were served in April of 2019, and then he just recently passed this past April, so 6 months ago. So I was 21. And I am currently a senior at The Ohio State University studying communications.
Thanks. Sister Annalie.
Hi, I'm Annalie. I'm 19. I'm Jency's sister. I was 16 when my dad was diagnosed with glioblastoma. And then I was 17 when we were served in April of 2019. And like Jency said, our dad passed away 6 months ago, so I was 19. And I am currently a sophomore at The Ohio State University studying linguistics.
Go Boilermakers. How about you, Colleen?
Hi, my name is Colleen. I am 20 years old now. I'm doing it backwards from everyone else, but I had it written down in this order. I'm sorry. I'm 20 now. I was 13 when my mom was diagnosed with breast cancer. My family was served when I was 17 years old, and my mom passed away when I was 18, so 2 years ago. And I am currently in Minot, North Dakota, going to Minot State University, studying elementary education and music.
Thanks, Colleen. And I can't even pretend to know what your mascot is. So
it's a beaver.
Okay, great. Go Beavers.
Get really, really, really tiny right there.
Oh, very good. Very good. Well, thanks again for being here, all of you. As you can tell, there's a range of just a lot of years of experience in what IOH specializes in, and that is providing families with some different tools to create a legacy and to create memories and to create a community with one another. And these folks have that with one another and are here to share with you just a little bit more about their stories and some of the things that they have worked through and some of the things that they have found joy in. And again, I hope that you are inspired by them, like I am whenever I get to share time and space. So we're going to go ahead and shift into some questions that you all can answer. And the first question that I have for you folks today is, what was the most challenging thing that you experienced during the illness or death of your parent? And Maddie, if you would like to start us off, that would be great.
Sure. So one of the most difficult and challenging things that I experienced while my dad was sick was my dad had passed away the first semester of my senior year of college. And when things really started to go downhill, I didn't know he was as sick as he was. So everything just kind of took a turn for the worst in a way that I didn't expect. And I had to try and balance going to the hospital and being with my dad, as well as staying on track in school, because my dad was so adamant and always wanting me to continue on with my studies. So it was really difficult to find that balance between, trying not to miss out on spending time with my dad and staying focused on school. And I really think that that was one of the most challenging things. And after he passed away 3 days after the semester had ended, and I got right back up and I went back to school the next semester because that's what he wanted me to do, even though it was super, super tough. But I think that was probably the most challenging thing.
For sure. Thanks, Maddie. Haley, how about you?
Yeah, I think that the most challenging thing for me was just the unknown of it all. That was kind of something I thought a lot about during my mom's diagnosis, and then after she passed, and still right now. I mean, it's something that I think about. It's just, when my mom was first diagnosed, I thought a lot about how long is she gonna live? Am I gonna get to see her during my high school graduation, my prom, things like that? And those were things that were very significant in my life at that time, and then as I got older and after she passed, there's that unknown feeling of how would I feel during my college graduation, knowing that she's passed. How am I going to feel at my wedding when I get married someday? I had a really hard time with the fact that I just didn't know how my family dynamic might change. I have a sister with cerebral palsy, and she requires around the clock care. And so there were a lot of times where I was unsure if I just have one parent, what's going to happen to my sister? Am I going to need to stay home from college? Like, should I still go to college? And there were a lot of just like questions that I had. And it really took me a long time to sit back and think that my mom would be proud of me with whatever I do and whatever path that I take. That doesn't mean that the unknown and the unanswered questions didn't bug me still, and I didn't have a hard time with them. But having that attitude and thinking about how she would be proud and how she would feel about me really helped me kind of cope with those feelings of uncertainty. And I know that I'm sure a lot of people feel that same way too. Just not having the answers to questions that affect your whole life and your family's life and your family's dynamic can be really stressful. So
good. Thanks, Haley. Annalie, how about you?
I think for me, obviously there's like so many different specific, answers I could give, but one that really comes to mind is just seeing somebody who has always been in my life as a very strong and very like in control of situations, and just like my safe person, and like not my rock, that doesn't sound right, but seeing him decline and like lose that was really challenging. And I wasn't expecting that, and I didn't even think that, like, I didn't even recognize that he was that person for me. But I think just like seeing somebody, as a child, you look up to your parents and you see them as this immovable force that, they have all those right answers and stuff, but seeing them slowly lose that was really, really hard.
For sure. For sure. Is there anyone that had something to add? I don't want to motor through if.
I could say something too. I guess the most challenging thing for me was seeing my dad's progression. He was this really athletic guy. He was my wrestling coach, baseball coach, got up on water skis every single summer. And just seeing him lose the ability to move his muscles really took a toll on me. Kind of like what Annalie was saying, this guy who you look up to and you're like, I want to be as strong as him one day. Seeing him lose the ability to do everything from, eating and talking. But on the contrary to that, him seeing his mental side and how strong he was through it all was encouraging.
Thanks, you guys. Thanks, you guys. So that kind of leads us into the next question, which is what emotion for you has lasted the longest? And Isaiah, why don't you just pick us right back up?
I guess seeing my dad's strength through it all, and even though he was losing the ability to walk and talk, seeing his faith towards us, his family, and putting his priorities at the top no matter what, even though he wasn't feeling well. I've really taken that to heart since he's passed. And whenever I'm having a bad day, I'm like, my dad got up every single day, even though he knew he was going to die. That really drives me to pick my head up and keep going day to day, because I know he did it through the worst.
Thanks. That's super encouraging.
Can I piggyback off of Isaiah?
Of course.
The pain of losing my mom is an emotion that has stuck with me, but also in the sense that I find myself saying I have been through harder things than this. You know what I mean? Like, I've been through more painful situations. I have had harder days. I can do this. And that pain is always, is still there, but it helps me almost put my pain in perspective, if that makes sense, right? Like, I've done harder things than this. I can pass this chemistry test or whatever it may be.
Yeah. So it's given you good perspective. I love that. Jency, you were going to add something.
Yeah. I feel like I can't really speak to something that's been going on, a long-lasting emotion, because it's only been 6 months, but some emotions that have kind of maybe not surprised me, but I've just really noticed a numbness, which I don't know if that's really an emotion, but just a shock of my dad's death and the numbness that I felt after that, of just like, I don't have any emotion. And along with that was frustration. Like, I'm supposed to be emotional about this, but I just wasn't. And so that was, quite unpleasant. And then obviously, sorrow and grief comes with that. But I also think that fear of losing memories with him, or losing stories that, I can't go ask him like, hey, can you tell me that story about the time you were here and did XYZ? I can't ask him those questions anymore. And so there's kind of this fear of losing those if there's nobody else I can talk to about it. And then also just the fear of kind of what Haley touched on with future events in my life, and just the permanence of what my dad's death means, that like I will not see him when I get married, and I will not see him when I graduate college. And so I think that there's some fear and maybe some just some anxiety that comes along with those things.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for sharing. I see your friends nodding. Like, I think it's relatable. Those are all super valid. Is there anything that you know now that you wish you would have known then? Colleen? Excuse me.
Yeah, actually, it's funny that these questions are back on each other, or what Jency was just saying, because one thing that I have like learned and discovered since my mom passing is that there are ways to still connect with her, in the sense where I thought when she was gone, like she was gone forever. And I really find myself enjoying like looking through her old letters, or like finding pictures of her when she was 20 and I'm 20, so it makes me excited. And yeah.
So the perspective of, in the moment you thought she was lost, and now you have different ways. Those are good suggestions.
Yeah, I guess I never really thought I would be able to connect with her, or I wouldn't find things on earth that like comforted me like the way she did. And I'm finding those things. So
I love that. Maddie, what were you going to add?
I don't think that, I don't know.
I think I just put Maddie on the spot because I
Yeah,
thought
you did.
and that was not right. So
That's
welcome.
okay. I think I have an answer.
Oh, good.
So the whole time that my dad was sick, we didn't know, like, he wanted to keep it so that we weren't the kids who had a sick parent. So he wouldn't, like, they were open with us to an extent. But I think I wish I would have really known how sick he was throughout more of the, like, my dad was sick for 16 years, but I really only knew how sick he was for about 2 months before he had passed away. And I think that if I would have known for longer that he was sicker, then maybe I would have had a better chance to really grasp onto the things that I wish I could have asked him now, or really like taken a chance to take in the life lessons that he was teaching us throughout the entire time that he knew he was going to die and we didn't.
That was really good on the spot, Maddie. Nice job.
Yeah, I hope that was okay.
Yeah. No, I think that's great. And it's really honest, like in the place where sometimes we protect people from things that are hard, that in hindsight, some of that was hard. It was hard anyway. Yeah, you bet. Annalie.
Yeah.
Colleen, go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to piggyback because it was so good, Maddie. And I think one thing that's different between us here on this call is how long our parents were sick for, which we kind of shared. But I feel like because my mom was sick for 5 years, like with her breast cancer before, it was like she's going to die, like that last year was really hard. Whereas like she's going to pass soon. I didn't realize that this was the last year because we'd had 5 years of surgeries and it, you know what I mean? So I think time can be hard on that. So, I don't know, being conscious of it would be, I don't know, advice. We don't really give advice here, but.
Great. No, thanks. That's good. Annalie, you were going to say something.
Yeah, kind of just what Jency said about the numbness. That was something that just really, I wasn't expecting. And I think Jency kind of touched on that too, but I just thought like the moment that he passed that I would just be, I would go through the five steps of grief.
Stages of grief. Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Which like, fun fact, you don't go through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And actually, Colleen, you don't even know this, but that's actually something Colleen taught me, was that grief, like you think you're done with this stage and then, oops, nope, you're going to start over. You're going to go through stage number 1. And so I think the numbness and just, I don't know, how my brain has processed his death and his decline, especially, I think that was all just really unexpected. So, yeah.
So do you think knowing that would have helped the process, or is it just something that having experienced it, you can appreciate that what you thought was going to happen just isn't really what happened?
Yeah, I think knowing that, I would have given myself more grace in the moment, because like we were at his burial and I was like, why am I not crying? Like I need to be, I'm just putting myself in a place where I thought I should be instead of just like letting myself be where I was in the moment. And so I think I would have just given myself more grace and just said like, you know what, you're not there yet. That's okay. You will be there soon. So I think I just would have given myself grace and given my siblings more grace too as they went through that.
Oh, I love that. So good. Thank you for sharing. Next question is, how did your parents' diagnosis affect your family? And Isaiah, you were going to kick us off.
Yeah, so with ALS, it's really physical. The person, can't care for themselves. And it took a toll on all of our family, learning how to become a caregiver, and different ways we can pitch in. I found myself to be more like the guy to be the lifter and, help him into bed, and less of the bathroom stuff. That wasn't my favorite. But I also had different responsibilities that I didn't have before, like, taking care of the home maintenance and taking care of the lawn, which, my dad had always done previously. And it was crazy to see like my 10-year-old sister learning how to work a feeding tube. That was something I couldn't do, and I was surprised that, she was able to. My family moved a couple times. That took a big toll on us. Meeting new friends and new families, and just building that support network was difficult. And yeah, is there anything else you'd want me to add?
No, I think that's great. I mean, it's kind of an open-ended question, right? Like you had a lot of very tangible physical changes that happened with your family that, everybody kind of got to play a different role, and you've adapted. I mean, we could watch you adapt and you've made the best of it, but it's maybe not, I mean, I don't think anybody expects to be in that position where you're taking care of your parent, not when you're a teenager, for sure.
I guess I could add too, like, on the emotional side of it, like finding time to spend time as a family. Everyone has their own busy schedule. We all had sports to go to, but we'd find time to go on family vacations and eat family dinner and just enjoy the time that we had left with my dad.
Do you feel like that was a different priority because you knew time was limited for you personally? Did it impact maybe your willingness to do that kind of stuff?
Yeah, for sure. It was a big challenge for me, getting the diagnosis in 2015. My dad saying, I could pass away anytime from a year to 10 years from now. It's really, I was like, how can I come to terms with this? Like, and just realizing that every little moment you have is precious, and just spending each time to enjoy time with your family members.
Thanks, Isaiah. Annalie, you were going to share.
Yeah, I think, I don't know, there's so many, like I said before, there's so many different examples. But I remember on our retreat, in our breakout group, we talked a lot about how we were forced to grow up so much faster than our peers, and the frustration that came with that. And like I'm worried about my dad's chemo treatment or his big surgery that's coming up, and my friends are worried about, a test, and just like the frustration with that. And I think as a whole, our whole family we were all forced to just grow up really quickly. And I think especially as one of the older kids in our family, there was an emotional weight maybe that was added of just caring for our younger siblings. There was one night that our dad had all of a sudden he had a really traumatic grand mal seizure, and they rushed him off to the hospital, and Jency and I were with the kids, and we were all just like sitting on the couch like, oh my gosh, what just happened? Like, and just we had to be really in tune with everybody else's emotions and just like caring for them. And so I think that is very specific to our family and to well, maybe it's not, but I don't know, I think as an older sibling, that's something that was really an added thing.
A fun fact for people who maybe don't know your family is that you have a whole lot of kids in your family, right? How many are there?
Jency and I included, there's 10 of us,
Right.
11 of us.
Right. And you're the oldest too.
Yeah.
So good. I mean, that adds to the story, I think, when you talk about, you know, having to take care of other people. Like there's a lot of other people. And sometimes when you're worried about everybody else around you, it's hard then to process yourself too. And so that's a big impact for sure. Yeah. Is there anyone else that wanted to add before I motor on? I certainly don't mean to motor. I feel like Jency was going to say something and now she's frozen. Right, maybe. This is how our conversations go, IOH friends. We hope the internet works, and sometimes it's a little clunky, but that's okay. You guys are doing a great job. So I'm gonna, oh, are you back? There she is. Did you have something to say? Was I right? Okay, I think you're muted. Oh, good. Here we go. Perfect.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah, the Wi-Fi's a little spotty. Don't lose it. Don't lose it. Oh, so one thing, what was the question? Sorry, how has your parents' diagnosis affected you? I think as a young adult, we can probably all relate to this, that you are looking ahead into a lot of decisions, especially as maybe you're getting close to high school graduation and you're just trying to make decisions about where to go, what to do. And I feel like that was something that really was difficult for me. Is I want to go to college, I want to be able to travel, I want to be able to take trips with either by myself or with friends, whatever it is, but you just are always very aware of, okay, how long would it take me to get home if I needed to get home really quickly? I know that a lot of sicknesses are really unpredictable, and glioblastoma is one of those. And so, you know, especially after my dad's grand mal seizure that came out of nowhere, you know, you're just very aware of like, okay, if I'm going to be 3 states away, it's going to take me this amount of time to get back. And so that was definitely something that had an effect on all of us, I think, because you just don't want to be too far away.
For sure. Thank you. Kind of in line with that, my next question for you all is, was there anything or anyone who surprised you or that surprised you as you were kind of going through the journey of your parents' diagnosis? And Maddie, I think you were going to start us off with this question.
Yes. So I think that the support system that I had throughout really surprised me, especially in those last 2 months of my dad's life. There were a lot of people that I had met in college who really didn't know my story, especially my senior year of college when I was getting involved in so many different campus activities. And all of the people that were involved in those campus activities as well just became a huge support system for me. And I wasn't expecting that. And I think the other thing that was really surprising too was the community support that we received when my dad was put on hospice, and how many people stopped by the house to say their goodbyes to my dad and things like that. And the amount of people that just wanted to support us as a family after he had passed and that came to his funeral. Like, it was just so amazing to have the support system that we had and the friends and family that just came to surround us with so much love. It was just really, really amazing.
Thanks for sharing. Jency, I think you were up.
Yeah. So one of the things that has really surprised me, and I touched on this before, was just the numbness that I felt after his passing. I had accepted a job that I was going to start, and I told them I didn't want to start until after the summer because I wanted to use the first 3 months to really grieve and process. Little did I know that I would be spending those 3 months just in total numbness and shock, which also surprised me that I was in shock because we had been, you know, we had known about this for 3 years. And so I didn't think this would be a shocking experience to me, but it wasn't until after I moved and started my job and got back into a new semester that the grief, I think the numbness was really worn off, and now the grief really, really hurts, and there's no padding anymore to protect me from it. It just hurts. And so that's surprised me. You know, everybody says everybody's grief journey is different. You can't time it, whatever. And I don't think it was until I actually experienced it that I understood what they were saying. And then another thing that has pleasantly surprised me is just how much my love and respect for my dad has grown since just in the 6 months since he's been gone. There's just so many stories that I remember, or pictures that I see, or just things that I remember about his character that just, in my eyes, it just elevates him even more. And obviously he was a sinful human being and he was not perfect. And it's not like I forget that, but you know, I just have so much respect for the way that he walked through this whole process with such grace, and he was always leaning on the Lord, and that was always his prayers, that the Lord's will be done and that the Lord would be glorified through him. And just looking back on the entire process, I just saw, like, from the very beginning to the very end, that was his goal and that was his prayer. And so yeah, I'm so proud to call him my dad too, and that has only grown over these past 6 months, and I would call that a pleasant surprise.
Yeah, for sure. I love that story. That's awesome. Haley, were you gonna, you looked like you were gonna jump in. Go ahead.
I was thinking about it. Yeah. I was thinking about how, like, we come together and we talk to each other about our parents, our lives, and we connect in so many, ways with having lost a parent, or connect with other people who aren't on this call who maybe still have their parent who's diagnosed. And a lot of times I personally feel like, like I like talking about my mom. I love to talk about her. I love hearing stories about her. I love hearing everyone else's stories. And I'm surprised about the amount of little things that can make me upset. Whereas, like, bigger things like this don't as often, like I love talking about my mom and all of that. And those seem like obvious things that would maybe trigger something, or make me more upset or have a bad day. But it's a lot of times it's little things, like maybe a friend of mine is in a fight with her mom, things. I see something little, like, I don't know, like a mom and their daughter going shopping, like just like little things like that. I was surprised about how much those make me more upset than just like the bigger things, or like movies about cancer, like things like that don't, for me personally. And so that just kind of surprised me. And I was thinking about that. So.
No, that's so good. Yeah. Thanks for sharing. Anyone else? So good. So good. Thank you for being willing to I don't know, that stuff is kind of hard to talk about. I know it is for you guys because you're honest about it, but we very much appreciate it. And one of the things that we for sure want to spend time talking about is the hope that you still have, or the ways that you find hope, in part because that's what this organization helps us all do and stay focused on. And so we want to make sure we have time for some of that. And so we're going to kind of shift gears just a little. Some of that stuff is kind of heavy, but I would like to know what your surviving parent has done really well. And if there's something you wish that they would have done or would do differently, it's an okay time to share that too. So I think, Colleen, you were going to start us off on that.
Yes, and Kara, I'm so sorry. I did not hear you say surviving parent. I was thinking of my mom for this question.
Well, you can. Go ahead.
That's what was in my brain. I'm so blessed that my mom made a legacy video for my sister and I on our retreat. And in that she says, like, you have more videos and letters coming.
So you're excited about that?
There's never enough of those.
So I'll just take this moment to say that that is one of the things that if you've been on an Inheritance of Hope retreat, then making legacy videos is an opportunity. And actually, Haley, you should talk a little bit about that because you often give the pitch for legacy videos. So why don't you just tell us a little bit about what those are and what they've maybe meant to you? Anybody can chime in on that.
Yeah, I really wanted some sort of video or letter from my mom because, like I mentioned earlier, I was really worried about the unknown and just not having her to ask questions to and stuff. And I never asked my parents about it, and I didn't ask my mom to make me one. And it was after she passed away that I told my dad my feelings, and he said that she made a video with an Inheritance of Hope. And I have never been so thankful. In my video personally, she just tells me that she loves me and that she's proud, and she shares some stories. I've met plenty of people who their parents all say different things, but it's such a gift for a child to have, to just see their parent again. And I know it's really hard to make one. I haven't made one. I can't imagine making one. But as somebody who maybe doesn't remember their mom's voice or their dad's voice very well, or haven't seen them smile in a really long time, any of those little moments that you don't think are as important are extremely important. So I really want to encourage everybody to make a video. You could literally just sit there and just smile and say hi, and anything is enough. But yeah.
Yeah, and I think the purpose behind those videos is they're not farewells, right? They're just tributes from a parent to a child. And I think as someone who gets to facilitate for IOH, and I mean, every time you guys talk about that, I'm like, I should do that for my kids. Like, I feel like every parent should do that for their kids, regardless of the situation. But given the situation, if there's an imminent situation, it becomes even more special, I think, to the people that get to receive it. So thanks for sharing that, Colleen. That was lovely. And you too, Haley, for sure. I think, Annalie, you were going to say something too.
Yeah, I think my mom has just done a really phenomenal job. Like Jency said, the summer, so my dad passed in April, and then the summer was really just Jency and I were home, and yeah, like that was a really interesting 3 months. But I think something that my mom said that really impacted those first couple months was that like grief doesn't make sense, and it doesn't have to make sense. And she really gave us the space to like have that grief, and we were very blessed at like because of COVID, it was a pretty relaxed summer. So we could have that space, and I know like every situation is different, but yeah, I think she was just like really created a culture of being gracious to one another. And like my brother would say something and I'd be like, oh, why are you like this? And she'd be like, it's grief. Like grief comes out in totally different ways for different people. So I think she really facilitated a really healthy environment where we could work through that initial stuff. And she modeled it for us. And she was honest about how she was feeling, especially with Jency and I. Yeah, I don't know. I think she did a great job, and she continues to do.
Anyone else? So I think that you all have had, like we've said, you've had unique experiences. And so I'm going to just throw it out there. One of the things that we generally don't do at IOH is give advice. Colleen made reference to that. However, you happen to have a lot of years of unique experience and life experience. And I think that the group that's here today would love to know if you have any advice for other young adults who are faced with a situation that is so very much unlike their peers. So I think, Isaiah, you are going to kick us off.
Yeah, I guess I'd say kind of something what Jency was referring to earlier. It was like making decisions and how your parent affects that, whether they're sick now or I've already passed. For me, it was a difficult decision, whether I wanted to go work after I graduated high school or go to college, and how far I wanted to go to college, and if I wanted to move states. It was kind of just a big cloud in my head, and I really didn't grasp it until after my dad had passed, that he really wants the best for me, and that whatever I would do, he'd be happy with, and whether that's moving states or not going to college just yet, just making it your decision because you know that your parent would support you. I wish my dad had the voice to be more assertive in that.
Thanks, Isaiah. Colleen, what do you got for me? For us.
Yes, I said earlier, we don't usually give advice on, I was talking about for our Hope at Home calls, and we're great at just like dumping, like, this is what's going on in my life, and we're great at being listeners. And maybe if we ask for advice, getting advice, but not just giving it. So that's what I meant by that. Advice I would give to young adults, and I always say I'm a bad adult. Every Tuesday I hop in this call and I tell my friends how I have been a bad adult this week, whether it be meal prepping or however it is. And then they reassure me, especially Kara, that she's been adulting for many more years than I have and still considers herself a bad adult at times. And that there's like, that adulting is hard, no matter if you're losing or lost a parent or not. Like some of the same struggles, like your friends that haven't gone through this are also going through, and that being an adult is hard, and just giving yourself grace. I don't remember who talked about giving ourselves grace earlier, but there's nothing more, I don't know, there's no better advice I could give than to give yourself grace, I think.
I love that. And we do talk about that all the time, that I think that is just a really great takeaway for all of us, right? Is to give ourselves the space to just recognize some things are really hard. And it's okay that they're really hard, for sure. I think Jency was going to chime in on this a little bit too. Just some advice that you would give.
I have a couple of things. First, I would say don't compare grief, regardless of whether it's something big like losing a parent or something small like doing poorly on a test. Give yourself grace, like multiple of my friends have said. And the phrase comparison is the thief of joy. And then when you're comparing your grief to somebody else's, or your grief today to your grief yesterday, like, you better believe you're not going to have joy in that. So do your best to just not compare. And also I would just say that, we've also talked about this, that being a young adult is a very transformational time of life, and you're trying to figure out a lot of things. And so when you throw in the curveball, which seems like such a light term for such a heavy thing, like losing a parent or having a sick parent, it just makes the entire self-discovery season really, really difficult. And so I would highly suggest trying to find a really good community to really plug into. And that can be hard when you're moving to college or you're somewhere for just a summer, because it's hard to get really plugged in and then have to leave. And so kind of going along with that, I would also say, like, just be careful about who you let in your inner circle, and find a core group of people who are either like-minded or who love you. And I'm going to make a shameless plug for our Hope at Home group, because it is, you guys are some of my best friends, and I know that they're going to be here every week because we're all across the country, but we all make it a point to come. And so I think having a good community who can walk with you in this and encourage you, and sometimes I'm having a great day and somebody else is really struggling, and vice versa. So just finding some people who you can be really open and honest with, and who love you, and are just going to be there for you.
Love that. Thank you very much. And we're all about shameless plugging here, right? Because when you have something good that's happening, it's great to share it, right? And it's such an interesting thing because sometimes I hear about families that are experiencing, a diagnosis or the loss of a parent, and they haven't plugged into IOH. And I just want to say, oh, give it a whirl, or let your kids try it out. Like, there's just so many things there that could really bless your family. And so if you know anybody that's on the fence, we're not scary. We're pretty normal. and it's a safe place to just be yourself and kind of find some support. That's great. I didn't say this before. We did prepare some questions before, or talk about some questions that we were going to ask, so people weren't just deer in headlights for all of you and what we were sharing. But I wondered if anybody has been thinking a little bit about not just the young adults that might be listening to this call, but some of the adults, either caregivers or people that are experiencing the diagnosis. Like, do you have any advice from perhaps, from the young adult perspective that you could share with adults that are tuned in, that maybe are interested in what you would have to share? Anyone?
I could say something. I guess seeing how rooted my dad was in the Lord, and keeping his faith throughout his tough passing, and just him really rooting that in me. And when times get tough, I can just go to the Lord. And it's difficult as a young adult. You want to go off and do your own things and follow your own path, but my dad really taught me to follow God's path for you, wherever that leads. And that's been really reassuring to me, and knowing that I'll be able to see him again one day in heaven. So
Thanks, Isaiah.
I can go next, and if you can't tell, I'm the one that cries every week. That was a joke, sorry. I would give advice to the sick parent that, I don't know, for me, one of the hardest things about grief is the person I want to talk to the most is gone. And I thought before my mom passed that watching videos of her, like reading stuff she wrote, would have made me really sad. And I found it's the opposite. So I wish I had more. And even like, I watched this really stupid video that my mom took on accident. It's like the floor, but I hear her talking and I love it. And I wish I had more of those. So I don't know, I would encourage that. And if your kids find that it's really hard for them to watch it, then they won't. And they have it if it is for them. So
Kind of to go off of what Colleen just said, about just like having little things. Something I had started to do towards the end of my mom's diagnosis, right before she passed and after she passed, is I had this journal and I would write down things about my mom. Like, my mom loved pizza, her favorite color was pink. Or like, one time we were in the car and this happened and I was embarrassed, and that was dumb because I was 12 years old, like embarrassed from your mom sort of thing. And they're just like little moments that I can look back on, and I wish I had started doing it sooner, because there are a lot of things I don't quite remember. And when I do, I'm walking to class and I remember I see something that reminds me of my mom, and I think of this moment we had. I can write it down and put it in my journal later. But I kind of wish, we've all kind of talked about, there are things that we don't know that we wish we could have asked our parent. And so maybe some advice that I think, if you as a parent, whether you're the caregiver or the diagnosed parent, you could write down just like little things about yourself to give to your child later. And it doesn't have to be you sit down and you write this hard letter or anything like that. You could literally just write down like, oh, this was my best friend in high school. This is, what I used to do on like date nights, just like any like little thing. And you could just keep it by your bedside and like write one thing in it every night. And they're just like memories and little bits that you can have to look back on later that, I don't know, I wish I had more of that. And it's kind of hard to think ahead and you don't really want to do that, but you don't have to make it a serious thing. I don't know. Yeah.
I love that. Thanks,
Hey,
Haley.
you've never talked. I'm sorry, Kara. I just yelled over you. Haley, I also do that, like in a different sense. My mom or dad didn't do it, but I, in my notes app on my phone, have mom facts and just the most random things that I think of, like that she liked stale popcorn. She clipped her toes over the toilet. Like, it's literally things I have in that thing. But it's like, yeah, that's amazing. I never even thought about having your mom write things, or dad, depending on, or your sick parent. So good. I love that, Haley.
And if I can just jump in here too, my dad also wrote us letters, and that has been very helpful for me. And like Haley said, like they don't have to be anything like deep and hard, but yeah, I think just having like a tangible thing that like he touched and he wrote this, I think that can make a really big difference and like a positive impact.
And I think the thing that's so fun to hear about all of your different ideas is that I know the spirit in which Inheritance of Hope was established was because Kristen and Derek at the time had really young kids, the Milligans, and they are the people that, formed this organization. And that was Kristen's hope, was that even when she was gone, that her children would have some memories. She would leave a legacy with them of some tangible things that they would have so that she could still be a part of their lives. And so I love hearing all the different ideas in different ways, some of them very tangible, some of them spiritual, some of them emotional. It's really, thanks so much for sharing. It's very encouraging to hear, and to know that that stuff matters, right? Like it's time well spent, and effort that's certainly appreciated. Um, I guess that sort of takes us to, it's kind of connected to, how is it that you still find hope? And you can take that to mean anything you want, even after the loss of your parent. What are the things that inspire hope for you still? I think Maddie, you were going to start us out.
I think one of the biggest things that I continue to find hope in is that even when my dad was so sick, he always carried such a positive and upbeat attitude. And like, you would have never guessed that he was sick when you would have looked at him. And I think that one of the biggest things that I can carry on and carry on in his honor is, keeping that positive mindset even when things are so hard. As best I can, I still take the time to grieve, but just carrying on the hope that he had for us, as well as, just showing that I have hope in myself and that others can have hope in themselves too. And I think that I'm going to shameless plug too, Jency, but having the Hope at Home group to just be vulnerable and be with my people who just get it, and they just, if you're having a bad day, then they can relate to it. And you don't get advice, but you just feel that support system even if we're on a computer screen. And it just makes me feel like everything's going to be okay even when I feel like everything's crashing down.
Thanks, Maddie. I would say that's actually one of the perks that COVID has inspired, was the creative establishment of groups. And as you heard earlier, like we're all over the place. And so it's really neat to be able to come together. I didn't mean to cut anybody off. How else do the rest of you find hope, if you will?
I guess I find hope in sorry, Jency.
Okay.
The things that me and my dad used to do, like watching sports, and going out and spending time outdoors. So I guess I can try to find hope in my sports teams, even though our Minnesota sports teams let us down every year. But also, like, getting out and skiing and hiking and living vicariously through my dad like that.
I love that. Go ahead, Jency.
I think that one of the things that has really, and this is something that I wish people talked more about, is just that sometimes things aren't positive, and sometimes it's really, really hard to keep a positive attitude about something like this. And sometimes you have like pure joy, and things feel great. But I think that one of the ways that I have really found hope is finding that it's okay to, it sounds kind of cliche to say it's okay to not be okay, but truly. And I've found, in the Bible, in the Psalms, and in the Book of Lamentations, like practicing lament and practicing just this act of worship, in a sense of just laying out before the Lord, like this is throwing it all up, and not trying to tack on like, but it's gonna be okay, or like everything's good, or but I'm gonna see him again soon. Like all of those things are true, but sometimes it doesn't feel like that. And so a phrase that has really helped me, and I think given me hope that not every day is going to be perfect, but also today, like maybe I'm feeling like at the bottom of the trench today, but I have hope that I'm not going to feel like that, maybe tomorrow or whenever. But one of the phrases that I really use a lot is, Lord, I know you're not XYZ. I know you're not mean. I know you're not forgetful of me, but it feels like it right now. And that's just given me a lot of freedom to express to the Lord, and maybe even to, I talked about your close circle, what's going on, and just not stuffing those emotions. And I don't know, it might be weird to kind of connect that with hope, but I really do feel like that's a really hopeful thing, is that we have that freedom and that ability to express that. And then once you get it off of your chest, it kind of creates room for that hope to really take root.
I love that. So good. So good. Anyone else? I think that I actually think your presence here and your willingness to talk about your experiences is another example of how to find hope in tough situations, because I know that people can feel like they're going to be in the weeds forever, but every single one of you has lived through the really hard reality of a loss, and you're here to talk about it, and you're here to say that you do have joyful days and you do have really hard days, but you're managing and you're finding a way to manage. And I think that in and of itself is such a testimony to people that are in the weeds, that's not how it always has to be, or it always is. So again, thank you for sharing. Thank you for being here. And before we close out our session today, I just thought I'd open the floor. And if there's anything else that anyone wanted to add, you could jump in and do that before we close our session. Go ahead, Colleen.
I would love to say that IOH is such an amazing organization, and the fact that for me personally, like my family was served in 2019, and it wasn't until my mom passed that really IOH was like an active part of my life again. And that what once was a retreat, like what was 2 years ago, but now 3, like is one of the most important aspects of my life, or like this organization, and that it's never too late. It's never the wrong time. And for anything in general, and that the door is always open.
It's a true story. We'd love to see some of you join us. Thanks, Colleen. Yeah. Anyone else? Final words of wisdom or random thoughts? We're really good at random thoughts around here. That's how we roll best, actually.
I think, so fun fact, when my family was served, Miss Haley Black was one of our volunteers. And something that she said to my mom, that my mom told me really impacted me, was that like she was okay. And I think for parents, sick parent or caregiver, something that might be really encouraging is that we are okay. Like we've lived through this and it's not easy, but we are okay. I think that's been a really important part in my experience, is to like, I'm gonna be okay. It's gonna be hard, but like this isn't the end of my life. Like this is not the climax of my life. So that's my thought.
Thanks. No, that's awesome. So good. Well, again, we just wanted to thank you for joining us for this breakout session. And if you have any questions or follow-up questions, I know that there is someone monitoring the chat. And if you have specific questions, we will get back to you. We're just really glad that you're here. We hope that this time today has blessed you in some way. And we hope that our paths will cross in the future. So thanks for joining us. And we hope that you enjoy the rest of your time with Inheritance of Hope. Thanks.